I'm Brian Fouts, and I got Mr. Todd Horwitz, or Bubba Horwitz, with me as well as our guest. So welcome, everybody. Go and put some comments in the chat. You guys in here in the room? Hey, Lynn. Hey, Eve. How you guys doing? We're going to have a pretty fun time, I think, here today. There's some stuff that's happened in the past month or past week I think we'll probably talk about. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's going to be fun. And by the way, yes, so Stephen and obviously Chris are actually in, I think they're in the Bahamas right now having fun. So they're going to be on the Wednesday Wealth webinar here in a bit. But yeah, they're actually having fun right now, and they didn't want to get up early to do this right now. So we're going to step in for them and have a lot of fun. It is going to be a fun show here today. So we'll get rolling here in just a moment, get everybody into the room. Want to make sure, Sharon, are you going to?
Welcome to the Banana Republic of the United States of America.
The clown show. Oh my gosh. It's fun to watch, actually. If you ever want to get entertained, go look at foreign news and how they view the U.S. political system and our news. It's a different take, by the way, and it's pretty funny sometimes because it's like the clown show sometimes. I don't know, Todd, do you ever actually look at foreign news?
I don't watch it, but I know that they think that we're a bunch of clowns here. I think that they believe that the whole system is breaking down, and no longer do other countries really fear the United States anymore because, of course, President Biden's giving everything away and making sure that China gets to accelerate their 100-year plan of taking over the world.
There you go. I love it. All right, so guys, before we get rolling, we're going to go ahead and play the entry video. So, Sean, if you're in the background, you can go ahead and roll that. We'll get rolling. All right, everybody. Welcome once again to What the F Happened. I'm Brian Fouts with the Money Multiplier, and I've got my co-host and good acquaintance here, Todd Bubba Horwitz. Todd, before we get rolling, if you want to go ahead and give everybody a quick synopsis of your background real quick, and then we'll get into it.
First, tell me what the F stands for.
I don't know. What the frick happened?
I'm a professional trader for 45 years. I was a floor trader for 30 of those years. And since there's no more floor, and I do a lot of media for Fox and for RFD TV, and used to do for CNBC until they kicked me off, and CNN until they kicked me off because, of course, they don't like my views. But I'm here now, and I'm happy to always discuss and talk about what I'm thinking.
All right, we're going to have fun here today, guys. So, hey, any topic you guys want to talk about, please go ahead and put them into the comment box right there. But let's kind of get into it. So there's been a kind of a big event that just happened here recently that everybody's been talking about. Of course, that is the Trump verdict. It's been all over the news. I'm seeing polls everywhere. I am seeing so much bias in the headlines. It is insane. But so, Todd, so we were talking about it before this. You kind of felt that the outcome was already predetermined, correct?
Yeah, I think everybody kind of knew that you could tell by even the judge's instructions to the jury, they were going to find him guilty. But I think the mistake that they're making, to try to jail. Oh, hold on. Sorry about that. Whew. Those are those pool detectors they make you put on when you have a pool. They had to put them on every door. And why that went off, I don't know. But I think that when you look at the overall picture, that I think that they're actually doing damage. I think it favored Trump, and you saw that by the $200 million he's raised since the conviction. Okay.
Yes.
Again, but this is really a banana republic. When you can take your political opponent and try to put him in jail. And again, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter, because remember, they don't stay the same all the time. And the shoe could be on the other foot sometime. And that is not the precedent that we want happening in this country, which is why I call this now the Banana Republic of the United States, because we're no longer have the freedom. We don't have free speech anymore. everything is woke and it's becoming pretty scary. Fortunately, I'm old, but I am worried for my kids and my grandchildren.
Yeah, and so that was kind of interesting when I saw that. I was a little surprised at the donations. I mean, people were pouring money into it after the guilty verdict. That was insane. And what I heard and read somewhere is that it was actually 30% was first-time donors.
Yeah, I think I think you're seeing a big switch to Donald Trump, because I do think that you're seeing that people are sick and tired of giving up. Realize the amount of taxes that you're paying now for all of these illegals. Realize the deficit that we have to support these illegals. Realize that 1 in 5 hotels in New York City is overrun by either homeless or illegal immigrants. So we're paying for that. If you don't understand it, the taxpayers pay all those bills because government creates nothing but debt. Okay. They don't have a business. They don't have a product. They create debt. And
Yes.
again, we're making a big mess and really destroying the middle class, which is a tragedy because the middle class is really what supports the country.
Yeah. And so it's and there's actually a topic I want to talk about here in a moment about the middle class and what's happening there. Now, as far as like what happened with Trump, I mean, how do we see that really impacting like the markets and the middle class ability to really, I mean, keep their money working for them? I mean, I didn't see a lot of turmoil in the markets after he got voted guilty.
There was no reaction to the markets because I think we have a sick market right now. Okay. The whole market structure, this whole rally that goes back to last October is based on the potential of rate cuts. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but in my view, there is no way that they're going to be able to cut rates based on the current inflation numbers, based on everything else. So I don't think the market even thought about Trump when the verdict came out. I think that they're more concerned. They're begging for this rate cut. And it's not going to come. They were begging on it for March. Now we're into June. And the only way that we get a rate cut now between now and the election is either a political reason or we're going into a recession. But if you would see here's where the problem is, Brian, the political system. If they would let the true free market work, okay, rates would be higher. They would not be down here even at 5%. They would be higher. Mortgages are already up to 7%. We would be higher because the free market tells you that rates can be higher. And the reason that the Fed wants to keep them lower is to help the extremely wealthy. Okay, we're seeing a whole switch in this country where there's the destruction of the middle class, the destruction of capitalism, and the destruction of small business. So if you go to these peer-to-peer lenders, Cabbage, Prosper, and all the others, they're getting 12, 13% easy from their lenders, okay, or from their borrowers. So what does that tell you about what the free market says about interest rates? This is the issue that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a corrupt system that is very close to treasonous, and there's a lot of problems out there.
And that's a good point to bring up because, I mean, my viewpoint is this. It doesn't matter who wins the next election. It's still going to be a broken system. That's my take on it. People say, oh, get Trump in, he'll fix everything. I don't honestly think that's going to happen. I think it's a better option than the current one that's in office. But is it going to fix our system? I mean, I don't think it is. I think the system is already too contaminated. It's already too poisoned, and it's on this path. And one of the viewpoints I read somewhere here this morning actually was that if you get someone like Trump going into office, he's going to be vindictive, which I don't know, a good thing or bad thing. I'm not quite sure, but like we see all these things happening, and you said like the market is sick. It is sick. Now, do you see like what's happening coming up in November being a solution to that, or a fix to that, or is the ship already sunk?
Well, I think our political system is broken. Okay, I think that we have criminals on both sides of the aisle. Okay,
especially now, one's convicted.
I think that they all steal. Okay, they all have these deals. Why do you think that we stopped being the world's largest producer of oil? Why do you think that we're not using our own oil and we're importing from Saudi Arabia so that we can pay $80 a barrel versus $30 a barrel? Why are we giving so much to China? The United States is the one country in the world that could act as an island. okay, and be by itself. But of course, between the lobbyists and the politicians on both sides, they're always taking the paydays for making these ridiculous deals that are anti-American. And again, I would say border on treason when you look at it. I think the only thing Trump can do, in which what he did do in the when he was last time president, what he did do is he stopped China, he stopped Russia, and we became fuel independent, fossil fuels. We were rolling along, and the economy was rolling along. Okay. The only reason that he got him in his way was because he couldn't keep his mouth shut. Okay. But at the end of the day, I believe that if he gets back in, yes, he will be vindictive. But I always felt that in his second term, which he never got, he was going after all of the criminals anyways. I think I think Paul Ryan, when you remember when he was a speaker, he quit before Trump because I think he knew that he was going to be one of the guys that Trump was going after if he was still in office. So, but in the long and short of it, Trump, I think, can stop the lobbying. He can stop the stuff and put China back in their place. And it is my opinion that all these billions of dollars we pissed away into Ukraine, that war would have never started if President Trump was in office.
Gotcha. That's an interesting take on that because I can't make any prediction of what's going to happen here coming up because it's all over the board. But man, what did he raise? $34 million was raised after this verdict.
200 million after the conviction.
Was it total 200 million? Okay. Wow. I mean, that tells you that there's probably something underlying that we haven't quite seen yet. Because if you go look at all the headlines, that a lot of them are liberal outlets, they're saying, "Oh my gosh, the Americans are don't think he should keep running. They think he should have been guilty, etc." But then you see something like that, and I always kind of look at the quiet majority. What is the quiet majority doing, and how do you know what they're thinking? And well, that to me is a big sign as to what's going on underlined all these big headlines and stuff. But what'll happen, I don't know. I can't predict it. Nobody can, but it's going to be very interesting. And I don't think that, it makes no sense to have the current president, Joe Biden, go for a second term. That to me is a disaster.
Well, he was a disaster in the first term. I got to say one thing. First of all, he's a known racist. Okay. And again, I'm not trying to call names, but his own vice president called him out for that. What he's done with Israel, one of our number one allies in the Mideast, is ridiculous. Okay. So again, you're looking at a guy who's a racist hater, okay, who's done nothing but steal since he's been in office, going way back. He was the youngest senator ever elected at 29 years old. Okay. He's always been against everybody. He's always been voted every racist bill, but yet they make him like he's a king and the president. And of course, Donald Trump, who had the highest amount of ethnic workers, the highest amount of minority workers in history, was the racist. So again, this is the problem with the news outlets that we have, because depending on which news outlet you listen to, that's where you form your opinion. I think that's another thing that unfortunately will never change, but needs to change.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And there's a lot of things that, if you read between the lines, of course, you can see the stuff, but if you're just reading the headlines, the picture is being painted incorrectly, in my opinion, and it's being manipulated for sure. So that's a big one. So guys, any comments on that kind of stuff, guys? Obviously put that in the chat box. Yeah, Jim says, I believe that there are less than 100 congressmen or senators that are honest and truly representing average America.
That many?
That many? I was going to say the same thing. Like that many?
Look, McConnell was no better than any of the rest of them, right? We all know that, if you're willing to invest $40 million of your own money, okay, to get elected to a $200,000 a year job, that does tell you something beside, right?
Right.
How could math? Why would you put up $40 million of your own money to get elected to a $200,000 a year job? Okay.
You're gonna get it back.
Listen, we need so many changes in government. We need term limits on every office. Okay. We need more specifics because again, they've allowed the system to run amok. If you read the Constitution states very clearly that government should be run city, county, state, and the federal government is just to oversee. The federal government was never intended to be the largest employer in the world, which takes me to this point that out of all those great jobs they say that they created over the last 4 years, over 55% of those jobs are government jobs, which means that we, the middle class, get to pay more salaries for more worthless people that are not doing their job, that are stealing our money.
More manipulation right there. And that's actually one thing I wanted to bring up, because I saw this headline where the job report was actually not that great.
It was horrible.
It's horrible right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're always touting that, oh, the economy is great. Hey, we were more jobs. But it's just like saying the economy is great when they're printing money. That makes no sense. How can you say the economy is great when you're printing money and our deficit is out of flipping control? Because they're manipulating the numbers, because they are the ones that are behind the scenes printing money. Same with the jobs. Guess what they're doing? They're behind the scenes printing jobs. It's like, wait a second here. It's great because you say it's great because you're manipulating the numbers. It's as you said, it's criminal. It's
interesting,
criminal.
Brian, because when they report the jobs, right, they give you the headline number. But do you know that 15 out of the last 18 jobs numbers have been revised lower the following month that nobody pays attention to?
Yeah, it's always going down.
Everybody watches the headline number, but they don't look at the future when they come back with the real number. So I think this Friday coming is the non-farm payroll. Today was the private sector through ADP. The non-farm will be interesting. And I think that's, I guess, what the markets are waiting for right now, because they're still kind of stoic and stagnant, although higher.
Interesting. Huh. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, because what we see and what they're saying, the headlines, is very kind of present. But if you go back in history, what you're saying is look at what they said was going to happen didn't happen. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, again, we have a manipulation of numbers. You know, there's the old story, right? Numbers never lie. Only the people that report them do. And of course, that is exactly what we're watching. We're seeing ridiculous numbers. And for example, if you believe inflation is only 3.5%, I got a bridge I can sell you in Brooklyn, right? I mean, my bills are much higher than 3.5% more than they were last year at the same time.
Yeah. So let's stop about that for a second, because inflation is one of the biggest things right now. That it was a big deal here recently, but this is kind of my belief, is that the political powers that be, they want to distract you from what they're doing, because here's the bottom line when it comes to inflation. What's the cause of inflation, by the way? Now, obviously, Todd knows the exact cause, but everybody says inflation is rising prices. That's the result of inflation. The actual people that are saying that they're handling the economy is great are the ones causing inflation by printing money and obviously fractional reserve banking, all that kind of stuff. And so they're saying it's only 3.5%, but they're the ones causing it in the first place. It makes no sense to listen to them. So, Todd, kind of in your thoughts, what's really happening with the numbers and the true inflation numbers for especially the middle class, which are the ones being hit the most right now?
Well, the problem is, Brian, is they've put too much money into the money supply. Okay, they printed way too much money. They're not allowing the free market system to work, and prices have to rise. And this is, again, you're seeing a certain sector which is really under pressure right now, which is the most important sector in our country, which is the farmers. Okay. There's a lot of farmers that are not going to be able to plant this year because they're going to be planting at a loss the minute they put that crop in the ground. And I think that China has a lot of responsibility to that, because I think they're trying to buy that farmland. They already own the largest hog producer in the world in Smithfield Foods. But I think that what has been done because of the excess money supply, that does not benefit, or the trickle down, right? Remember Joe the plumber from President Obama? It don't help Joe the plumber, okay? This only helps the big guys. And what this administration has done is they continue to yell about, well, tax the rich and the billionaires make too much money. They have cleared the path for Google, Meta, all the big companies, all the big conglomerates to flourish in these times by helping them with the low rates and everything else, putting on regulations, which means that they're destroying any future competition that can come into this market. Okay. So the big guys have all the cards. They are holding all the cards here, or all the trump cards. They're holding everything here by the help of this administration, who I always thought, being a libertarian, but I always thought that the Democratic Party was supposed to help the little guy. Okay. They're screwing the little guy, and they're clearing the path. And Google and Facebook and the other companies like that, they will never have any competition, because to overcome the regulations to get in there will never happen. So nobody can ever compete. And one thing I can tell everybody out there, if you destroy competition, if you think you're paying high prices now, wait. You'll be paying a lot more because there'll be nobody to compete to keep prices competitive nor quality good.
You know, that brings up something that I want to share here for everybody too, because that competition. So when you think about like a platform like Amazon, what Amazon originally did is it allowed people a place to come in and sell their goods and have competition and have price competition. And by the way, I had, I should say now, multiple e-commerce stores on Amazon. So I had selling wooden calendars, selling mixed protein drinks. I had all these e-commerce stores. Well, guess what happened? Well, Amazon looked at everything and said, well, wait a second here. If I can eliminate the competition, I can control the entire market because Amazon is so big. They are their own marketplace. They are massive. So I'll share with you what happened to my store here a month and a half ago. Amazon came in and said, we don't like what you're doing. We shut you down. Not only did that, there was money, and I'm not going to say how much because it was not a small amount of revenue that I had generated that was Amazon was holding because they pay you out every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks. They took it. They said, oh, you generated thousands upon thousands of dollars of revenue in your store by selling your own goods that I manufactured personally in India, by the way. But we don't like what you're doing, so we're going to take the money and shut your store down. They literally stole the money from my Amazon store. That was our revenue, and there was nothing that we can do about it. And they did this to 60,000 people, we estimate, by the way. Shut their stores down, took their revenue. We know somebody they took 7 figures from. Just took it. Didn't pay it out. Attorneys involved, doesn't matter. So what you're saying, Todd, I agree. I get it. I saw it happen with my own business and inside Amazon.
Thank you, President Biden.
What's that?
Thank you, President Biden.
Exactly. How can they do that? How can they steal, in my opinion, criminal your money, take it, and not pay it back and have no repercussions? It gets me very, it gets me fired up, man, because it was a lot of money, but you're seeing that there right now. So what is Amazon doing? They're eliminating the competition. And now they're selling the exact same thing that I was. Amazon is now sourcing it and selling it on their platform.
Listen, they're doing the same thing that Walmart did for years. You know, Walmart has vendors like everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. But when Walmart would buy from you as a vendor, they weren't buying from you because you had a great product or a great price. They were buying from you because you were going to loan them the money and they were going to take net 90 days to pay you if they paid you all, but they would pay you. And then they were going to recreate the product themselves. In the meantime, they held out their vendor for 90 days, trying to use your money. And of course, at some point, we might only have Walmart and Amazon. And do you think they're going to maintain their low price structure when there's only 2 of them left, the 2 behemoths of the retail world? And this is the problem. When you eliminate a competitive world, you eliminate quality, you eliminate price, and you eliminate the opportunity for anybody else. And this is one of my biggest concerns for the future. Again, will it affect me? No, I'm too old. I'll be dead by the time this really all starts to hit. But at the end of the day, I'm very worried for people's children, young people, because they're turning this place into a sewer. And everybody always yells at me, well, but the United States is the greatest place in the world. Well, okay, maybe. Okay. It was at one time, nothing came close. But now the rest of the world is laughing at the United States of America. We're running this country like a banana republic. You have open borders, allowing anybody just to come in, criminals especially. You've got no more wealth to spread than you do have in the state of California, where you have a big amount of homeless versus everything else. You got more illegals there. Again, once again, the American middle class gets to foot the bill for all these people and all these regulations that they're putting in and all these laws, which are not helping us. They are penalizing the citizens of this country.
Yeah, I agree there. By the way, I had a Walmart store too. Guess what happened to that store? Got shut down too. I mean, literally eliminating control. It is astronomical. And when you talk about the open borders, things like that, and I live up in the Pacific Northwest. So people have said, well, Brian, you don't see that up there, the borders, the issues. I'll tell you this, where I live, the population is 40% Hispanic in Pacific Northwest. Like this is like, I'm in Washington State, by the way. Now, nothing against Hispanics, by the way, at all. I nothing there. But when we have crime up here, it's 90% one demographic. And there's gangs now. There's gangs in where I live now that have come from. They're actually Mexican gangs. There's articles on it. I'm seeing higher crime because of that, and they can't prosecute. They can't do anything about it. It's unfortunate, very unfortunate.
Well, how do you feel about the prosecutors now are saying, well, we shouldn't be charging for things like that. We should be letting people out. Again, I want law and order. I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of having to be fear for my life wherever I go, because there is no cops that are allowed to arrest anybody anymore. They're allowed to let them go, just like what happened in New York a few months ago when a cop got beat up by the illegals and I let him go. Okay.
Well, it happened here. It happened here recently. I'm not going to get into it. It was very, very brutal. 2 weeks later, the same person, another issue. And it's like they let him go the first time. It's like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? But I'm in a very liberal state. And so they're very liberal on the coast, but where I live, it's very different. And so you have these liberal laws affecting an area that does not want these laws. But yet, guess what? It's being crammed or forced down our throats. And it's unfortunate. Yeah. Dexter says, have to create your own laws and enforce them. Well, but guess what? Guess what though? If you go and do that, they're gonna throw the book at you. Like it happened down to a farmer. I remember this article about this farmer that had some illegals coming in with guns and he shot at them. I think he killed one of them, and now he's the one that's being put in jail. It's like, wait, what?
How about the couple in St. Louis that were defending their home and they got arrested? Look, this is the problem. We don't have law and order. You don't have law and order in big cities anymore. I mean, you get the murder capital of the world where I'm from is Chicago. Okay. And of course you have no law and order there. And look at what they're doing. Again, you want to be feared for your life. I think it's a joke. Okay. And of course, we go back into the gun laws. I don't care how anybody believes in guns. I mean, I'm a believer of the Second Amendment. I never owned a gun, though, until I was 64 years old, because that's when I felt I needed one. But at the end of the day, okay, the criminals are going to get the guns. Okay, I don't care what laws you set. The criminals are criminals. They're going to get the guns. Just like during Prohibition, they got the booze and the guns. If they eliminate the right to bear arms in this country, you don't think the criminals are going to have guns? I mean, let's be real about this. No matter what side of the aisle you sit on, be real that the criminals get what they want. And that's the problem. When you can allow people to do those things and try to prevent law-abiding citizens from being a part of the system.
Right. It's an interesting thing you say there is that they create laws to what? To remove the guns from criminals who don't abide by the laws in the first place. And then wait a second here. What are we doing? We're insane. It makes no sense. I agree on that one. All right. So guys, what kind of the topics you guys want to talk about? Because we can go about this one all day long. The Second Amendment, all that kind of stuff. Now, here's a question that I was kind of thinking about this morning. I was reading some stuff by Nell. Obviously, we both know Nell very well, Capital Trading Group. And it was talking about, this is kind of funny. It's talking about Walmart store managers really can make $500,000. And I was just like looking at that. I'm like, well, wait a second here. And it's true. So if you are an executive at Walmart, you can make a ton of money. Now, how does Walmart make money? So Todd, kind of in your kind of, when you look at a company like Walmart, I mean, even like Amazon, they're huge. They are massive, like you said. They are like changing cities. They're changing, metropolis areas because they're taking out the small guys. They are like just coming in and just wiping everybody out. And I've seen that happen so many times, and I hate it. I think it's destroying a lot of small businesses. And people think they're getting a benefit by having a store like that in place because they're getting cheaper prices, cheaper food, cheaper this, cheaper that. But what's your take on that and how it's really going to affect us in the long run?
Well, I think the problem with Walmart is obviously they've got too many laws in their favor. They work cheap. Okay. They have if you ever try to get help in a Walmart, you can never find a person in there. So they have a very low end payroll. They pay very little, a little bit above minimum wage. Okay. And of course, they also have the vendors that they can screw as well, because vendors want to get in there. And of course, the vendors take the responsibility for the returns. Okay. So Walmart's got everything going in their favor in their stores, from low cost of employment to the best prices, to be able to get customers to come in. And of course, they have some very high profit items in there, and they have a lot of items in there that they have no risk on whatsoever. So it allows them to continue to grow and get bigger. And they've destroyed, as you said, all of their competition that's anywhere near them, because people care more about saving a few bucks than supporting their local vendor. And again, I know, understand when times are tough, you have to be more frugal with your money, but that is a big problem, because again, I'm telling you, at some point it's going to be Walmart and Amazon, and there'll be no other little business around. And that's a real big problem.
Yeah. And, Dexter made a great point there. He said, Walmart comes into small town and shuts the small business down, and then hires the family for pennies on the dollar, did the same job they were doing before. And I actually was at a Home Depot. This is years ago, and this guy was helping me, and this guy was smart. He was sharp. He knew what he was doing. I'm like, and I remember I made a comment. I said, "Man, you know what you're doing?" He goes, "Yeah, I used to own a plumbing store." I go, "Oh, you know?" He goes, "No, I had to shut it down." because he said I was it was like a hardware store, plumbing store, and he's like, I couldn't compete, and so I came and worked for the person that took my job or took my business. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, that is the ideal example of what you do not want to have happen, but it did.
Well, they literally can't compete as a small business, because the cost of employees, the cost of insurance, the cost of everything is so much higher, because they're not volume buyers like a Walmart is or like an Amazon is. So they get punished for trying to be a small business, because their costs become much higher than their competition. So they have to sell their product at a higher price. So it really destroys the free market system, which we all remember and kind of grew up on.
Yeah. My family and I, we actually go vacation in, all over Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, and things like that. And whenever I do that, I try to find an area that has a small town where the Walmart store is very far away. I'll try to find a town like that, because when we go there, it is like going back 30 years, 40 years into history, where you had these small towns and you had these stores that were run by the family, and you had the restaurants. It's amazing. So there's about 3 or 4 cities we'd love to go to, because it's like stepping back into history, and it feels good. It just feels wholesome. And then you go to these other big areas, and it's just like, you see the Walmart, you see it there, and it doesn't feel good anymore. And by the way, this is not disparaging, but the clientele is different too.
I agree with that. Listen, I'm all for small business. I'm all for free market capitalism. I'm all for everybody having the opportunity to make the next big step in their life. And to me, what we've seen, especially over the last 4 years, now, listen, I can blame as much as I want on this administration. They're a big part of what's going on now, but this has been going on for years. The disintegration of the free market system, the disintegration of American freedom. We go back to 2001, right? 9/11. Those Congress people, they couldn't line up fast enough to sign away Americans' right with the Patriot Act that allow you to search anybody. So this has been going on for a while, but the destruction of capitalism, destruction of a true free market, has been really something that has been really blossomed under the Biden administration, and violence has blossomed under the administration, and the country has turned into a very much of a toilet right now. That's all I can really say. I don't like what's going on. I think it's very, very sad, because we should be the most powerful nation in the world. We should be controlling ourselves. And again, I said we can be an island. We don't need any other country. We can be self-sufficient. The only thing that we're missing here are some of the rare earth materials, but they can certainly be replaced.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I agree. And don't ignore headlines for a second. Like, just go drive through some of the big cities. Go drive through New York and ask people that live there, hey, is it safe to go out at night? I've heard people saying, absolutely not. Don't come here. Actually, Chris Nagel lives in New York. He lives in upstate, so it's a little bit different, but he doesn't want to go to New York City anymore. I used to live close to Seattle. I worked there for over a decade. Go to Seattle. I felt fine there. I went there about 6 months ago, and it was an absolute slap in the face, shock. Holy shit, what was going on? There was garbage bags piled up 20 feet high on part of the freeway entering into Seattle. Like, just garbage piled up there. going through town. There were tent cities. There were boarded up, businesses. I was like, what is going on here? This is like going to an abandoned town, but there's people everywhere that are look like they're in rags. It was a complete shock. And I don't think they're reporting the true numbers. I don't think they're reporting the true crime that's going on. I don't think that what you read in the news and stuff is true. Just go walk through it or go drive through these areas. It's crazy. I would not recommend anybody go to Seattle.
Look what happened to San Francisco. I mean,
I lived there. Yeah.
I mean, look what happened to that place. Okay. Look what's going on in Chicago. I mean, look anywhere. We don't have any laws anymore. There is no more law and order. There is no more protection. Okay. Yeah. You take your life in your hands. And again, you allow these. Remember the peaceful protesters that we had?
Oh, yes.
So again, I can't tell you how disturbing it is. And you go back to your original question back a while ago, I think Trump can change a lot of that.
Yeah, I think it's also it's a top-down politics too. There is that top-down politics. I live in a liberal state, but also here's the thing: most people don't realize about Washington State. 1/3 maybe of it is the coast and very liberal. The rest of the state is not. It's actually the opposite a little bit to a degree. It's big farmland, a lot of farmland, pro-gun, all that kind of stuff. And even the police here are pro. They're not liberal. They're the opposite. And so you'll see the policies come out of, Olympia is the area here, but they come out of the political system here. But you can see that the other side of the state does not want to follow those rules and those laws. And there's been even sheriffs have said, we're not going to do that. We're not going to follow. And you're seeing this kind of this kind of butting of heads. And I think it's a problem. I think it's a big problem because people feel like this stuff is being shoved down their throat, and it's ridiculous. But yes, I mean, it would be interesting to see what happens if Trump does get back in the office, what he does, if this can be, I don't think reverse would be the best term, but maybe slowed down or I don't know what your thoughts are if it can be slowed down.
Well, I think we can see some law and order. I think we can see some of the things in this country. I mean, some of the laws and some of the things that are going on are not going to be changed. But I do think that he can have an effect on law and order. I think he can have an effect on a lot of the lobbying that's going on, which means a lot of our money that's outflowing to foreign countries will no longer be outflowing to foreign countries. Maybe we won't be trading at a trade deficit anymore. Maybe our debt to GDP won't be more, right? Because those are not good things for anybody. No matter how you're doing right now, those are not good things in the future. A higher debt to GDP. Those are not good factors for a solid country or a solid company, which, again, the United States of America is a company, no matter how you want to look at it.
Yeah, and it's out of business, or should be. All right, a couple other topics I think would be kind of interesting to kind of close the loop on a little bit. Let me see if there's any comments here. Non-union jobs, yeah, I agree there. So Sam has a question here. I love this one. Why are you blaming President Biden for Amazon and Walmart taking your business? Is it the greed of both Bezos and Waltons that took your business and money? That is a fact. So what's your kind of thoughts on that one?
Well, President Biden and his administration made it acceptable and put the regulations in play that allowed them to take you out of business and steal your money. Okay. Without the laws and the regulations that they put in, Amazon could not have done what they did to you and to others. So that is directly correlated to a government regulation. Well, since President Biden's in office, he's the only one that I can blame right now because he is the commander in chief. So when I look at it from that perspective, you are, if we didn't have those regulations in place and didn't have the new laws in place and didn't make it for Amazon to pave the way, all Walmart, then they wouldn't have been able to do what they did to you. So
that makes sense.
My answer.
Yeah, it makes me want to go back and look at that because to kind of add to that one, the stores that I had that were shut down, they were crushing it, doing very well when Trump was in office. It wasn't a year after Biden was in office they were shut down. So
listen, no matter what anybody wants to say, and whether you're a Trump supporter or you're a Biden supporter, I don't care. Okay, I'm still a believer of a free America, although we're not so free anymore. But At the end of the day, okay, were you better off 4 years ago? Now I know 4 years ago I was paying $2.30 a gallon for gas. Today I'm paying $4.80. Okay, So I was paying $1.40 for a loaf of bread. Today I'm paying $2.60. So I don't think that things are better now. I think there's more hatred in this country today. I think is more racism in this country today. I think there are more problems in this country today than ever. And I think it's been perpetrated by this administration, including George Soros, who pays the protesters to protest. You don't think those people out there protesting aren't paid? They're not, people don't have that kind of money just not to go to work and sit out there and protest all day. They get paid. Okay. So again, you're seeing the destruction of a country. And if you go back in history, every major empire has failed between 200 and 300 years. And how old is the United States right now? 248 years.
Not very old, by the way.
But every great empire is folded between that time. And I'm not saying we're going to, but you watch what's going on, from the changing of history to the tearing down the statues to the things that they've done to try to erase history. Remember, those who try to erase history are doomed to repeat it. Okay. And for those of you who don't believe the Holocaust is real, I have real family members that had tattoos. I've lost real family members during that period. So it can happen again, especially when you take out of the mind and out of history what actually did happen back then.
Yeah, you erase it, you don't remember it. Yep. Okay, so here's the other interesting one. Are you familiar? Okay, so good morning, Bubba and Brian. Great discussion. Are you familiar with IBKR brokerage firm? And if so, would you trust opening an account with them?
Yeah, iBroker is Interactive Brokers. They're okay. They're one of their divisions. I mean, they're pretty solid. Are you in the United States or are you in a foreign country? Yeah, that's a question, because I have a better recommendation if you're in what do you trade? Okay,
I use them for commodities. I used to use
for commodities. iBroker is fine. I have a lot of members that we use them for people that are out of the United States, because a lot of people can't use the same people that I can use here.
Yeah. Now are they more of a commercial broker?
Like yeah, I mean they're big. They get a lot of big business, but they take the small as well. Okay, they take it all.
I haven't used them for a while. Yeah, Dexter, California, for example, finally wants to prosecute smash and grab. Kind of coming back a little bit, and I got some other good comments here. So this is nuts. I saw these things on the news the last few years, and I was like, this is really happening. I was like, this is nuts. I cannot believe this is happening, that people are doing this, and people are being told, don't stop them, let them do it, that kind of stuff. There's only so much I think that people will tolerate of this kind of bullshit. People just blatantly breaking the rules. I saw it happen next to me. This is the only time I've seen it, but I was in a store and someone ran past me and like, what? Then they ran back again, like 10 seconds later, with a big armload of stuff, and everybody's standing around watching them. And I'm sitting there, wait a second. I actually walked outside, took a picture of their license plate. Guess who cared? Nobody cared. Nobody, not even the police. I'm like, wait a second. This is their license plate number. I actually got in my car. I wasn't following them. I was leaving the store, and I followed them for about 3 miles because they weren't trying to get away. I was like, this because they're not getting, nothing's going to happen.
There's an old poem by Martin Niemöller. Okay. And it said, first they came for the trade unionists. I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't do anything. Then they came for the Protestants. I wasn't a Protestant, so I didn't do anything, and so on. And then they finally came for me, and there was nobody left to help. Nobody cares until it affects them directly, which is the bigger problem in this country, that nobody cares about anything because they continue to let it happen, because at the end of the day, they care more about the money that they think they're getting. But I assure you that if you're anywhere near my age, your money in 1985 was worth a lot more than it is today. And the ability for a family to live with only one parent working is virtually impossible right now.
Yep. And I'm actually in that scenario, by the way. And my wife and I were talking about it last night. We literally were. What you just said is actually very true. I was talking to my wife about it. Now she's not working right now because her father has terminal cancer, so she's taking care of him, that kind of stuff. But I told her, so this is getting this is interesting. We're seeing it right now live. It's nuts. It's getting, like you said, very challenging. Yeah. So so A1 says this admin is corrupt and wants to sell out every American to the globalist, which means you don't matter and will be the first they destroy financially.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're trying to turn this country either communist, socialist, name whichever you want. It ain't good, whatever it is. Okay. What they're trying to do to this country is not good. It is a banana republic. You're letting an imbecile run this country that's being pulled with the puppet strings from behind, and nobody cares, and nobody is willing to step up and get involved. And we'll see. To me, in my opinion, the election forthcoming is the biggest election in my lifetime. Okay? Because if he gets a second term, you might as well bend over and do what they tell you to do in a plane when it's going down. Bend over and kiss your ass goodbye, because this is not going to be a pretty picture if this administration gets reelected.
100% too. And you know, we use Biden. We say Biden, but really it's who's behind the scenes pulling his string. He's a puppet. I mean,
he's got a ventriloquist behind him. I get that. I mean, again, he's a dumbass anyway. So
yeah,
you know, it wasn't if his first wife didn't die, he would have never got elected to the Senate in the first place. They felt sorry for him, and somehow he's managed to hang in there. But at the end of the day, we have to have law and order. The American people have to finally step up, because again, if we don't, you will have a revolution in this country again. This is not going to go. This is not going to go quietly into the night if something doesn't happen here pretty soon.
Yeah. If you guys ever read The Fourth Turning, that book kind of gives a hint at some of the stuff that could potentially happen. Have you ever read that book, by the way, The Fourth Turning?
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I don't like the second one as much, though, by the way. Yeah.
I recommend everybody read The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, yes. Yes, it's been a while since I read that one. That's on my next list of ones I want to go back to.
Because that is about the Federal Reserve, and if you read it, you will see things predicted and written, kind of like Orwell 1984. You'll see things that were written about 20 years ago that actually came into play.
Yeah, I did a presentation on the history of the Federal Reserve and fiat currency in the United States. It started over 100 years ago, the takeover. It's been a long time. It's been there for a long time. Anyways, not get into that. So some testing person, I like that name. So what do we do to use precious metals to pay for food when coin shops are disallowed from buying and selling PMs? How do we use PMs in SHTF scenarios?
Well, I think that you're seeing some states are actually eliminating taxing on precious metals, and again. If it comes to that, which I think there's an outside chance, there won't be outlawed. They'll be taking it, because again, if there's no money around, they're going to take what they can for payment. So I think that's maybe a misled concern. And of course, there will be also, which I do believe, in the cryptocurrency world as well. So again, I think that there's other things that'll be used, but I don't foresee them being able to totally flush out the precious metals. They tried to do it with the cryptocurrencies and couldn't get done. So what did they do? The United States became the fourth largest holder of cryptocurrency, and they now legalized it all. So, yeah,
that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't ever foresee us doing this, but I have a family member who says, "Can you imagine going into a store and paying with ammunition?"
I can imagine that.
Yeah,
I can see that. You remember, this was a few years ago. There was a shortage of ammo. You couldn't get any. Could you imagine trading that for food?
Oh yeah,
I could see it.
Now, and this person was pretty well versed, but they said, no, you have to understand that used to happen. Like, think back into the pioneer days. You want to go get, some meat or some salt or flour or something like that. You could pay an ammunition, because then that family will then go and get meat to feed their family. It has intrinsic value. It has value to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the barter system. Give me something I need, then I'll give you something you need, and I'll trade. Listen, this goes back to the caveman days. Some had barren land, some had fruitful land. They traded for each other. I mean, this is again, that's the way the system's supposed to work. Okay, not how it's working right now, where the government can print money at will.
Yeah, exactly. Someone asked what book. So it's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. Jekyll is Jekyll. I think it's 2 L's. Yeah, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Who wrote that book?
It was written by G. Edward Griffin. Okay, and it's about the Federal Reserve. Okay, It's where the Federal Reserve was created on Jekyll Island by 4 criminals: Paul Warburg, the Rothschild family, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers.
Yeah, so it's a very, very eye-opening book to understand what's going on, because those families they are powerful. They are extremely powerful. And they're manipulating a lot of things behind the scenes, and so that book talks about it. It's pretty scary, by the way. It's pretty scary. So, and it's interesting. Like, we at the Money Multiplier, we talk a lot about infinite banking. Like infinite banking is a way to store your wealth. Well, why do you think those families manipulate the monetary system and then use things like infinite banking to put their money into it?
Listen, I got stories here. I'll give you one more because I know we're getting short on time. But the banks borrow from the federal lending window. Okay. And of course, the fractional banking allows them by law to lend out 10 times what's on deposit. Okay. So here's the gimmick that they use. They can go to the Federal Reserve and borrow $1 million, take that liability, turn it into an asset, and then lend out 10 million. So not only does the federal government print money, so do the banks. Okay. And what kind of business wouldn't you like to be a banker? You can lend as much as you want. You don't have to get fully paid back by anybody because they steal so much from you. And then if you go out of business, you got the Federal Reserve that's going to bail you out, which means the American people are going to bail you out.
Yep. And so I've done that presentation before on like what fractional reserve banking is or what inflation is. People think inflation is, the Federal Reserve. It's twofold. They print money once, then they do it 10 more times with the fractional reserve banking system. That is inflation right there on steroids. What do you think happened when they printed money and gave you stimulus checks? Where do you put the check? Check goes into the bank. What's the bank do? Turns around and lends you 10 times that, which further reduces the value of the check they gave you in the first freaking place. Holy shit. It should be illegal. Fractional reserve banking should be illegal.
Yes, it should be, especially because most banks, in my opinion, again, I'll speak in my opinion, I don't think most banks could pass a legitimate stress test.
Oh, okay. No way. This is why we talk about infinite banking. Become your own bank. Take back control because that's the only way we can. Anyways, not to get into a whole rant on that one, but why do you think the big families of banks invest into whole life insurance? Gee, I wonder why. They're safeguarding their money. They're actually protecting their wealth from the exact system they are perpetrating.
Right.
I mean, wow. That's a whole other conversation that I get pretty fired up about because it's once you start to pull back the curtain, it's like, this is disgusting. Like, and
if you only knew, right? If everybody only really knew what was going on, okay, they would be disgusted. Maybe we would finally get people to wake up and understand that the system needs to change. And it's not just this. I mean, the whole political system from Social Security, which should not be 65 years old. For those who don't understand, Social Security was designed originally by Roosevelt. And that was when the average American died at 62.
Yep.
Okay. Now all Social Security is a big Ponzi scheme. And I'm telling you now that by 2035 or 2040, there ain't going to be a Social Security for you to get your money back because this government is so far over debt that there's not going to be any money left.
It is one of the most, if you go look at the numbers on Social Security and the projection, it's scary because you're right. Because Social Security was designed to help people that lived beyond the average lifespan. That's what it was. It was never meant to be retirement for the majority of people. Right. In fact, back then you had one or two people supporting one person.
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite. It's like you need 10 people supporting one person. That makes no sense. And they have never.
And that's why the retirement age should be like 77 and a half or 80. Okay.
For Social Security. Yeah.
Yeah. Because people want to work longer anyways. Okay. They're living longer. They want to work longer. Okay. Again, the Social Security was based on the average death at 62. You couldn't get Social Security till you were 65. So it made sense. Yep. But again, if everybody would have taken all that money that we've all paid into the Social Security system, the FICA tax on your return, okay, and been able to put that in your own IRA, it'd be worth a hell of a lot more than you're ever going to get from Social Security.
Yep, exactly. Lynn Green. Lynn, I like that one. People stand around filming instead of trying to stop whatever is happening. That is a very, very good explanation of it's too late now. If you're filming and then all of a sudden it's happening to you, it's too late. You've got to get off your phone, stop filming as I like that one, and actually take action. That's great. I love that. Jim said, I've read that 63 banks are on the edge as reported by the FDIC. Where can I find that list? I haven't looked it up before, so I couldn't tell you. I'd be shocked if it was only 63. I mean, consider that in the Great Depression, 9,000 banks went under. 9,000 in the Great Depression. Could that happen again? I think absolutely could. So yeah, knowing that and knowing where your money's at is a big deal. It's why we always talk about infinite banking things, because those companies didn't go under during those same time frames. So where do you want your money? Whether it's in cash, Bitcoin as Bubba said, precious metals, guns and ammo, life insurance, and other places to keep it. But yeah, I don't know. I have not seen that list before. That'd be interesting to see. All right, let's see here. Dex has a great comment here. Just curious because I don't know if Biden's son is convicted for his crime while his father is president, would he be able to pardon him before he leaves?
Yes.
Whew. But I would be shocked if he did. Well, no, never mind. I probably wouldn't be shocked. I'd probably just be like, oh my gosh, this is truly happening. Because if they did, I mean, that president would just be destroyed. I would have to hope they would be just literally destroyed from the public.
Yeah, but he could pardon him. He can pardon anybody.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question there. He could pardon Trump. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It'd probably be the smartest thing he ever did.
Oh gosh, for public opinion, absolutely. And so yeah, guys, great questions. Appreciate these questions. Any comments? Obviously this is an open forum, so yeah, put those in there. So one last thing I want to mention here, this is kind of a kind of tag it on to all we've been talking about, but this came from Nell Sloan. I saw this here a couple of days ago, I think it was, and it said it was a survey that was done, and it says the majority of middle-class Americans say they're struggling financially. 65% who earn more than 200% of the poverty level here in the U.S. So 65% of these people surveyed earn more than 200% of the poverty level. That's at least $60,000 for a family of four, middle class, middle to lower middle class. They're struggling financially right now, and I don't think that's going to get better anytime soon. So one of the biggest things when I've studied the markets, the economies, the recession, depressions, is that when the middle class is being squeezed harder and harder is when you're getting closer and closer to that big event. Yeah. Now, Todd, I know, you probably have seen that before and studied that same thing. So that right there, to me, is one of the indicators I look at when it comes to, hey, are we getting closer to a global event, whether it's a crash, recession, depression, whatever. Now, by the way, I believe we're in a recession. We've been in one for a while.
So do I.
Yep. So we're already there, but it's going to culminate, I believe, in something bigger. Something's going to happen. There's going to be something. Now, whether it's fast or slow, we don't know. But that right there is a very scary stat from what when I study stuff. 65.
I agree. Listen, the only thing that's holding it back now, I think, is that 65% of election cycles, the markets are higher. Okay. And now that you have a freewheeling Fed and the plunge protection team, I don't know that we're going to see it before the election, but I've said for the last year that I expect to see a 50 to 70% haircut on the market
after the election.
I don't know when. Again, I don't want anybody to think I can predict. I just think that at some point, I would have thought it would have been here already, but then I forgot that it was an election year this year. But I think that there's going to be a 50 to 70% haircut, very similar to 2008, because we're almost in the same exact setup that we were in 2008, and yet we keep ignoring all the problems that keep showing up.
Yep, and I agree. Something's gonna come down the pipe, and so obviously what I'm doing and what other people are doing is preparing. Like, what do you do to prepare? Well, get positioned, because guess what? What does Buffett always say? Blood in the streets. What do? Do the opposite of everybody else. What did Warren Buffett just recently do, by the way? Sold a lot of stock and went to cash. So did guess who? Bezos. Guess who else? The robot that runs Facebook. That guy, same thing. Yet guess what everybody else is doing? Buying in, which is why the markets are going up. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one, Todd? Because that's one of the things that I've been watching recently and trying to see, okay, who is selling, who's buying.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of always being in the market, but I'm hedged against everything. So, I use derivatives to hedge against my portfolio. So I actually buy automatically when the market goes down X amount of percent. And I know my exact risk. On any given day, I can give you the exact amount of risk I'm exposed to. So I have cash always on hand. But again, I don't worry myself because, again, I go back to the statistics of 8.5% year over year. And as long as I'm hedged, I'm not going to take the 50 to 60% haircut. I'll take a 4% haircut and be accumulating stock on the way down. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do. But I get it. And if you don't do that, then you should not. You should be taking some off the table so that you have ammo to buy when we do get that big sell-off. And it's going to come. Look, they always come. This is not new. It's part of history. Everybody said that it wouldn't happen again after 29. Well, it happened again in 87. It happened again in 01. It happened again in 08, and it'll happen again. Just a question of when, and will you be protected and prepared for it?
Yeah. And by the way, I have a lot of clients right now, and this is not financial advice, but they're removing money from the markets, 401k, things like that, move it into other vehicles right now to get it into a place where it's liquid first off. They can access it quickly, it's safe, and they can deploy it in the coming years into other assets and other vehicles because they're watching the markets. They're putting it into, whether it's, cash value life insurance, putting it into tangible assets, things like that. Even cryptocurrency to a degree, if you know what you're doing in that space.
Right.
A lot of things going on right there. All right, guys, I know we're at the hour mark. Hey, so Bubba, how can people learn more about you or follow you?
They can go to my website at bubbatrading.com. They can follow me at Bubba_trading on Twitter, or they can email me direct at bubbatrading.com.
Bubbatrading.com. So, guys, well, once again, Bubba, I appreciate you being here. This was an awesome seeing your take on things. I love your passion, of course, because I follow you as well, and appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be with you. I hope you invite me back. Then I'll know if I did a good job or not.
There you go. Absolutely, man. NVIDIA stock, crazy run.
Now we're at the point. It was crazy, and now with the reverse, not the reverse, but the split 10 for 1 coming. I think it's tomorrow. Okay, people think that they're getting a bonus by buying it here. I think it's a good company, but it's way overvalued at the moment. I think you'll see some pullback, but first it's got to split, and then you'll see some real action.
There you go. All right, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
WTF, what the F happened, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Bubba.